Ois Dalet. So we explained before that the Shavuos is shaykhis to Torah, which is shaykhis more to the Odom, which is Torah, versus which is Chiti, versus Pesach, which is the level of Yira Kabbalah soil, which is the level of mitzvahs. But in Torah itself, he talked about there is two parts of Torah. There is one part of Torah which is in order to know how to do the mitzvahs. That's like the chita, as we say, the the chita is also a min elon, and that's has to do with Shavuos also, because the ishtei halechem that came from chitin. But the prayer during Shavuos, it says Batsedis is al Pedus Ilon, but it's mainly as a chita, it's mainly as Torah is connected in order to know what to do, in order connected to Maisa, not just not Torah alone. That's what we're going to explain now. The two, the Rebbe is going to explain now the two madregas in Torah, the level of Torah, the way it is by itself, just study Torah, and the Torah as it's connected to the level of Maisa, how to do, as we'll see in the Maimer. Let's go ahead. Ois Dalet. The idea is the Shekiyum HaTorah mitzvahs nikra b'shem zriya hu mitzad shnei inyonim. That we call, when we say that the observance, it said before that it's called zriya sai because the Eibishter is the people in the world, the neshama beguf, that's zriya. Then the Yidden are matzmiach, are zriya, through the Aveda of Torah mitzvahs. The Rebbe says now that the main Aveda of the Zeriya is with mitzvahs. The two aspects that we have in Zeriya are mainly by the level of mitzvahs versus the level of Torah. Because in Zeriya, you have two things accomplished. This that the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs is called Zeriya. And again, the Rebbe will say, and in Torah itself, the part of Zeriya is the part of Torah which is for the purpose of doing mitzvah, not the higher level of Torah on its own. Why is Torah mitzvahs called Zeriya? So, there is two matters. Because of two matters, it's called Zeriya. Number one is Lifi Shal Yidei Kiyum HaTorah Mitzvahs Nasa Birur Haguf V'Nefesh HaBahamis. When a person learns Torah, fulfills the mitzvahs, that makes a birur. It sorts out the guf and the nefesh habahamis. So the one aspect of Zriya is to sort out Torah and mitzvahs. One of the ideas of Zriya is to sort out the guf and nefesh habahamis. Once you sort out the gufis and nefesh habahamis, v'al zem is gala hashodesh the haguf and nefesh habahamis. So when you sort out the guf and you reveal, it's revealed the root of the guf and nefesh habahamis, which is a higher level than the root of the nefesh halikis. So in order to get to this higher root, which is in the nefesh habahamis, first we have to be mevarer the guf and the nefesh habahamis. So the first job of Zeriya over here is to be mevarer the guf and nefesh habahamis, so that you can get the root of the guf, which is a higher root than the nefesh halikis. bedugmas hazriya kipshute. So this is similar to when you sow. Literally, what happens? Shal yidei zriyas hatvua v'hagarin ba'oretz. When you sow the grain and the seed in the ground, so then misoirer u'mizgale koyach hatzemeach shavoret. You wake up, you arouse, and you reveal the power of growth in the earth. The earth starts to grow through the zriya. So the same thing is you wake up the root of the nefesh bahamis when you sow, when you're mevader the guf in the nefesh bahamis, when you do the Torah mitzvahs with the guf and the nefesh bahamis, you bring out the source, just like when you sow, you bring the shoydish of the growth, the koyach hatzemech shabaris. That's one thing. The second aspect of zriya v'gam, and also lifishekiyum haTorah u'mitzvahs tzorich liyes loy mitzadata, because the observance, call it sowing, because we need to do Torah mitzvahs not because a reasoning, understanding, elo b'chdei l'kayim tzivah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it is in order to fulfill the command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kalosh in b'birchas ha-mitzvahs, like the language that we say in the mitzvahs. Why do we do the mitzvahs? Baruch atah Hashem says Asher kidishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivonu. He sanctified us with his mitzvahs and commanded us. So mitzvahs are commands. They are commands that we need to obey, which means bittul the Kabbalah soil. This is subjugation of accepting the yoke. How is that associated with zriya? Bedugmas zriya kipshute. Just similarly, in literally, how do you sow the hashuras hagarin ba'oretz al yidei the covering hagarin, the seed roots in the ground through the seed rotting away. Rotting away represents the bittul of the seed, that it's no longer a seed, just like the bittul of the Kabbalah soil. You give up your wills and you're doing kiddushanim b'mitzvah. These two aspects in zriya, that it is to sort out the guf and the nefesh habahamis, and that it's done in a way of Kabbalah soil. So he says those are mainly applied to mitzvahs, not so much to Torah. Hatam, and this is the reason al zeh she'iker hatzmicha he al kiyum haTorah mitzvahs managos. First, he adds that this is because we're talking about the rotting of the seed before it grows. That mainly takes place after the Chorban Beis Hamikdash in exile, because we are more in the level of Kabbalah soil and bittul, because there is no gilui. We don't have a revelation, appreciation, so we do mitzvahs with more bittul, with more Kabbalah soil. And this is the reason al zeh she'iker hatzimicha hi al yidei kiyum haTorah mitzvah bizman hagolus, that the main growth is the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs in the time of exile. Bizman habayis, because in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, when there was a revelation of godliness, at that time, godliness was open. Also, the revelation that when you did mitzvahs you can see the hamshachas, godliness came through when you did the mitzvahs. Loi hoya nirgash kol kach habitl the Kabbalah. Then you didn't sense so much the subjugation of accepting the yoke. Why? Because then it was felt the revelation that comes through the mitzvahs. So it didn't require, or you couldn't have so much Kabbalah's oil because you felt the revelation of the mitzvahs. So it was with more chayis, and it wasn't just accepting the yoke. It had energy to it. So you didn't feel so much the bittul of Kabbalah Soil because you feel the mitzvah, what it's doing. You're not doing it because somebody's telling me to do it, but you sense and you feel the energy. The Iker habitl the Kabbalah Soil, ubizman hagolus. The main bittul of accepting the yoke in the time of Golus, when there is no gilui. The mitzvahs don't give us a gilui. And still, we do it. The Ikar HaKabbalah, bittul HaKabbalah Soil, ubizman hagolus is the time of Golus. Ubefrat bedora the Ikvus of the Mashiach, especially in the generation of the hills of Mashiach. But shekiyum ha-mitzvahs oz, to the extent that the way we do mitzvahs in the generation of the hills of Mashiach, they sow with tears, which is meaning this zriya, the Torah mitzvahs comes on very difficult with tears, without a chayis, with Kabbalah. But they say dafke berina yiktzayru, as the pasuk continues, zorim b'dima berina yiktzayru. So eventually, so they merit through these tears to the zorim b'dima to berina yiktzayru. So while generally Torah mitzvahs are both ziriya, but mainly these ideas that we said about ziriya belong to mitzvahs, not to Torah. Hey, hine yadua hachiluk bein Torah and the mitzvahs. The difference between Torah and mitzvahs. Mitzvahs come to the person. The Torah is Torah's Hashem. We take the Torah's Hashem, or the mitzvahs, they come down to us. The mitzvahs heim tzivuyim leha. The mitzvahs are commands to the person. The HaTorah hidvar Hashem. So that's mitzvahs is for humans, is human, is for the person, and the Torah is Hashem's words. This is Chochmas Yishalach Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's the wisdom of Hashem. Eloshe Yordo Lamato v'nislapshu b'seichel ha'odam. But it descended below and addresses up in the human intellect. Umizem move on. So from this difference between Torah and mitzvahs, that Torah is godly, is Hashem's word, and mitzvahs have been brought down to the human, we understand the shnei inyanim hanal shebezriya, the two above aspects why we say the zriya. First of all is the birur haguf and nefesh habahamis, in order to reveal the shoyrish of the nefesh habahamis, to sort out the guf and nefesh habahamis. That's number one. And the second thing of the bittul, like by the grain, we're the kechat sameach. And the second thing of the bittul is the Kabbalah soil, is the rotting away of the seed in the ground. And beikir b'kiyum mitzvahs, they're mostly in the performance, the observance of the mitzvahs. Mashenkin b'Torah, not so much b'Torah. Why? The mitzvahs shehem tzivuyim l'ha'odam, because mitzvahs, which are instructions for the person, shayich loymar bohe, shayich loymar. So over there, it fits to say shakavona bohem, the intention of the mitzvahs that come to the human who bichdei litzari bohem es abriyas, is in order to refine and fix up the Briya's the creation. So the mitzvahs are there to be mevarer, the guf and the nefesh habahamis, because these are instructions that dress up to the person. B'shvil habirur v'hazichur shel haguf v'nefesh habahamis, for the sorting out and the refinement of the body and the animal soul, the ha'adam shemekayim es ha-mitzvah, of the person who is serving the mitzvahs, u'b'shvil habirur v'hazichur shel hadvarim sheba'ilam, and also that's for the nefesh guf and nefesh habahamis of the person, also to sort out and refine the dvarim sheba'ilam, the matters of the world, as a mitzvah, with which the worldly matters that you refine, that you observe the mitzvah, you refine them and you elevate them by doing the mitzvah. As opposed to Torah, by Torah we can't say that so much. Torah is not come down to the Adam, but it's the Eibishter's wisdom. So we can't say on Torah that it's an intermediate, God forbid, that it is an intermediate in order to impact the human and the world. Mitzvahs are for the person. They come down to impact and to change and mevarer the person and the world, but not so by Torah, because Torah is chachmos shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So how does the Torah affect the person if it's not mevarer and mezachef the person? What does Torah impact? What is an impact that takes place through the Torah in the person that studies the Torah? Who shall yidei? It is that shall yidei limud ha-Torah shaloi nimshechas b'chochmosei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu shalamayla ma'olam. That it is through his study Torah. When he studies Torah, it's drawn down to him. He gets the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is higher than the world. So what the person gets is not a refinement of his world and the person, but rather he gets hamshacha milumayla, that he gets higher than world from the Chochmos Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his study. And this, the Torah that extends into the person that learned it, that's in a way in which he unites with the Torah, as Alter Rebbe explained in Tanya and Perek Hey, the Rebbe brings in the note here, that the union that takes place, the connection between the person learning Torah with the Torah, is a wondrous and a very unique connection, achdus. So it's not the first aspect of Zriya, which is to mevarer nefesh habahamis. Torah is not mevarer the nefesh habahamis. Torah is mamshich to the person, the higher level, the gilui, which is higher than olam. Al derech zeh hu b'negeh la'bitl, the Kabbalah says. Similarly, the second aspect of Zriya, which is the subjugation of accepting the yoke, which is inyan hasheni dizriya, that's the second aspect of this sowing, is to rot in the ground, the level of bittul Kabbalah soil. It's mainly shaykhs by mitzvahs. The b'mitzvahs shem tzivuyim laha odom, mitzvahs that are instructions for the human. Shazem moira, that points about darge, the b'mitzvahs yesh laha odom tfisas makom. That points to the fact that when we talk about mitzvahs, the person takes up space, which is important because we're giving the mitzvahs to the Adam. Adam who mitzias. The person is a mitzias, we're giving it to the Adam. Why is he doing the tzivui? Umitzad habitl, the Kabbalah soil that comes because of the subjugation of accepting the yoke. Ke'eved hamekayim mitzvahs hamelech. It's like a servant who fulfills the mitzvah of the melech. He accepts it and he does it. He obeys. That's because of the bitl of a Kabbalah soil. Because the person inherently is an entity, is a mitzias. So why does he do with the mitzvah? He does it because he accepts the yoke. But Torah is different. But Torah, shehi chachmasi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we talk about Torah, which is the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not catered. It's not come down to the Adam, but it's Hashem's Torah. It's chachmos HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Is the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ein shom nisinas mokum lemetzias shachutz mimenu. There is no allowance. There's no space for any entity that is out of Hashem. So in the perspective of Torah, it's the wisdom of Hashem. There is no Adam. Gam loy mitzias the eved, even not existent of a servant of Kabbalah soil also not. And therefore, hashleimus the esek haTorah. What is the wholesomeness, the completeness in the way of studying Torah? Is he kishahalimud shaloi hu ba'ofen shedvar havayim medaber b'fiv. He learns in such a way that it is Hashem's words that come through his mouth. He's not an entity, but rather he is a vehicle to give over the words of Hashem. That's the highest level of learning Torah. That's the union, not to be an entity by yourself, but the level is to you giving over just the words of Hashem. And that's why our sages, this is what our sages' blessed memories say, that man malki rabbonon, who are the melukotim, who are kings, rabbonon. The rabbonon are the king, meaning the Eibishter, because they are not a separate entity. They are just saying the words of the king of Hashem. Kilimud haTorah shalohem, because the way they learn Torah, it's in such a way that the word of Hashem speaks through them. So it's not the bitl of Kabbalah's oil that they're an entity, but they're lechatchila and they accept the yoke. But lechatchila, they're not a metzias because they are bottled totally to the king. That's why they're in total subjugation. The Eved, which is even greater than the subjugation of an Eved. To the extent to the extent that their entire existence is the king itself. That's all. There's no self. There's no melech atzmai. That's the level of Tshal Yidei, Eraisa, Yisrael, through Torah, the Yidden and the Kuchabrich, we say, Klas Kishri Miskashran Davido, you connect. So the Yidden connect through Torah with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they become one, Kulu Chad. They become one. So it's not bittul of a separate entity, but it's a bittul in which it's one with Kuchabrich. Well, so here we're talking about a very special level in limudat Torah, the shleimus limudat Torah, which has to be the dvar havayi medaber b'fiv. What happens? Those people who just learning Torah and not at that madrege, v'gam mi she'ene b'darge zu, and also one who is not at this level. So limudat Torah shelo yiyeh b'ofen zeh, that his study of Torah should be in such a way. Shedvar Havaye Medaber B'fiv, that it is the words of Hashem speaking in his mouth. Yet still, the main emphasis by learning Torah is intellect to understanding, not the idea of bittul. The main emphasis in the occupation of Torah is lo yal inyan habittul v'hiskafia, not on the idea of subjugation and subduing yourself. The main emphasis is on the contrary. What you're trying to do is that your entity, which is your understanding, you should be one with the Torah, not to emphasis on the subjugation, but rather to understanding and to reach, so your Metzias becomes one with Torah. This is all explaining the second aspect of Zeriya that needs to accomplish the bittul of the Eved. That's mainly, the Rebbe is explaining that it mainly has to do with mitzvahs. But Torah, which is Chochmas Hashem, first of all, on the highest level of Torah, over there is Bechlal, not the level of bittul, like in the ground, which is Rikovin, but it's like Zeriya, but it's on a higher level. It's in the level of bittul, it becomes one. That midaberes v'terkrene, that the Dvar Havayim al Kirabonon on the highest level, so he's totally bittul. It's not the level of Zeriya of Kabbalah soil that is required because you are an entity and you're butler. And even one who doesn't learn at that level in which he is the Dvar Hashem, that he's speaking the Dvar Hashem, but that's also the emphasis by Torah is not the level of bittul, but it's adrab, it's understanding. And also that's why V'zeu Sha'amru, and that's why the Chazal, the sages tell us, you should learn where you want, which means what you enjoy, is to say, learn with Kabbalah soil. The chafetz hu ratzon sheyesh bo tainug. Chafetz is a ratzon that has a pleasure, has delight. That's what you should learn. So all this points to the fact that Torah is not the Zeriya, the bittul, the Kabbalah's oil, but you have an enjoyment, you have a tainug. We also know in Torah we have the idea of bittul as well. Agam shegam b'limudat Torah, also in the study of Torah. There needs to be the subjugation of a Eved, even in Torah. And that's why we call it Ula Shel Torah, the yoke of Torah. The yoke means accept that. We also have in Torah that subjugation of subduing yourself, which is, as the Gemara says, to be an Oved Hashem is to learn your chapter 101 times more than what you're used to force yourself in a way of iskafia. So we have in Torah also the bittul of Eved and iskafia, which is the Kabbalah soil, but nevertheless, what is the main emphasis when we learn Torah? Is Torah shalomdo tia hatanig v'chayil. We want that the Torah that you learn, that should become your delight, and that should be your energy. So we can say, Tam Lozeh. What is the reason for this? What is the reason that Torah needs to be done with the tainug and the energy? Because Torah is the tainug of the Eibishter, and when you connect with the Eibishter, it becomes your tainug as well. We can say the reason for Torah that has a tainug is the kivon she'inyan limud ha-Torah, since the idea of the study of Torah, who shall days and nasim Yisrael v'kutshemrich v'kuluchat, through the Torah, the Yidden and kutshemrich and Hashem become one. L'chein, therefore, k'boy shebehakodesh baruch hu ha-Torah hi ha-tainug da Kodesh Baruch Hu, just like by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah is his delight. As the Pasuk says, that I was, the Torah is saying, I was by Hashem, his play, his enjoyment. Hashem played, the Torah was his tainu. And we want to connect to the Eibishter. Likewise, there needs to be in the person who occupies in Torah, that the Torah that is studied, that should be his delight. So here we're saying that the delight that the person has in Torah is because that's the Eibishter's delight. And since he's connecting with the Eibishter, that should be his delight as well. But before we say that the delight that the person has is because he intellectually understands it, that libe chafetz, not because of connecting with the Eibishter. Even though the pleasure of the person, the Torah that he learns, is not because it's the Eibishter's tainu. Is because of the intellect which is in the Torah. As understood, also learn in a place where your heart desires. That means that you have a pleasure, enjoyment there. Yesh loimar. So we can still say that shebipnimi is yonim, that in the inner matter of things, hatainuk shaloi b'Torah, the person's pleasure that he has in Torah, that is because Torah is the shashuim of the Eibishter. It's the play, it's the enjoyment of Hashem. Since the Yidden and the Eibishter are one, that's why the Torah also is the pleasure of the Yidden. Tainuk Hagolui, in the revealed. So inner thing is, this is the tainuk of a shashuim of a Kodesh Baruch. But in the revealed tainuk of the person, nirgash, it's felt tainuk shaloi b'Torah mitzad hasechel shabo. He feels that his pleasure that he has in Torah is because of the intellect that he enjoys, the liber chafetz. And so the Rebbe now is going to explain. So we have here the two aspects of Torah. We have here the aspect of Torah, which is the higher level, which is the Tainug Hashem. And then we also have the Libe Chafetz, the Tainug of the Seichel. So these two inyonim of Tainug Shebeseichel and the Tainug that is Shashuya Hashem are these two levels of Torah which are hinted the Chito Ilan. Let's look inside. The Shloimar, Shnei HaInyonim Shebetoira, these two aspects of Torah, Merumozim Bechito Be'ilan, they are hinted in the Chito and in the tree, because even though we said that the Chitim, it says Atzeres you mispalel on the Chitim, we say that a Chit is also kind of a tree, but it's still not a full tree. It's a Chita and an Ilan. The Chita shehi Tvua, the Chita is grain, that is Tvua. The Gam Lidas Rabbi Yeshua, it's Rabbi Yehuda. So also according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, Hirak min Ilon, it's only a kind, it's really a Chita, but it's not a full tree. It's a kind of a tree. So it means it is also included in a tvua. So that aspect remezes al haTorah k'moi sheshayeches lemitzvah. That is as Torah is connected. So when we talk about the two inyanim, we have the way the Torah is on its own, and then we have the Torah as it connects to mitzvahs. So the chita, which is a tvua, that hints to the Torah as it's still a connection to mitzvah, because the chita is a min tvua, that's a kind of a grain. So that hints to the Torah as it connects to mitzvahs. Shalimud haTorah hu bichdei lekayim mitzvahs Talmud Torah. That his study of Torah is in order to fulfill the mitzvah of study of Torah. So that is one level that is hinted in the Chita. The second level is vaTorah k'moshim mitzad atzma, as on its own, not as a preparation how to do mitzvahs. And that's merumezes be'ilon. That's hinted by a tree. The milus ha'ilon legabe tevuahi. What is the advantage of a tree over the grain? Shetevua, because when we talk about grain, gam chitim hidavar hamuchrach l'kiyuma shel ha'adam. Even wheat is something which is necessary for the existence of the person. And the inyan ha'ilam, what's the idea of tree is who matzmiach peiros, that it grows fruit. She'enu muchrachim l'kiyuma shel ha'adam. There are not necessity to sustain the person. Alodvarim shel tainuk. Those are matters of delight. And not only is the eating of the fruit a delight, to add also seeing the tree causes tainuk. As the pasuk says, that it's a level of delight that is there. As we see, practically Shatiul began that when you go for a walk in the garden, Mokim Shetzomkim by Ilamis, in a place where trees grow, Utainuk, that's a delight. So so based on this, so that here is a level of delight of Torah versus the level of chita, which is something necessary in Torah, which is for the mitzvahs. Yesh yuvon or ilu, the Rosh Hashanah li'ilu, not Rosh Hashanah li'irokis. Now we'll understand the advantage of Rosh Hashanah li'ilu, which is on Tesvav Bishvat over Rosh Hashanah li'irokis. The Mishnah says that on Echad B'Tishrei, it's Rosh Hashanah li'irokis, and here that's on the first day of the month, and here we're talking about the 15th of the month that the Rebbe brought out. So the advantage of Rosh Hashanah li'ilon on Rosh Hashanah li'irokis, af she'b'yirokis nichlal gam chitim, even though when we do yirokis, we also include chitim, Michael Adam, which is a human consumption, not like by Soirim, which is by Pesach, but in Yerokis, it also has Chiti, which is Michael Adam, Sharemzim al HaTorah, which also hint to the level of Torah, as we said, the Chita, the Chav Beis Oisius HaTorah, and the Chita is Michael Adam, and so it's connected to the level of Torah. But the Hamshocha b'Rosh Hashanah li'irokis, the Rosh Hashanah li'irokis is hibenegei l'kim ha'mitzvahs. That's as Torah connects to mitzvahs. So that's lechatchila for the mitzvahs. But even as it relates to Torah, gam hamshocha shebenegei leisek haTorah chitim. So also the hamshocha, which is connects to the occupation of Torah, which is chitim, he benegeya leisek haTorah k'moshe shaykh l'kiyum mitzvahs. That is, as it connects to the occupation of Torah, as it's connected to the observance of the mitzvahs. But v'hamshocha b'rosh Hashanah li'ilon he benegeya lelimud haTorah k'moshe matzad atzma. The Rosh Hashanah li'ilon, that's as the study of Torah as it's in itself, which is not to know the mitzvahs, but just for the Torah itself, which is inyan hatainug the Torah. That's the idea of the tainug of Torah.